there is something that I need to bring up
All right.
with you here.
All right.
Because I want to see if Matt's going to change his tune that he has sworn by. And I have called him an idiot on numerous occasions, but on numerous occasions for this line. My question for you, Dr. Chucklehead.
Yes, sir.
When Jared Warren wins the belt in Fort Lauderdale next month,
right?
Is he the world champ?
What's it for? Well, it's a title fight, right? Or is it an interim belt?
No, it's a title fight.
Yeah. Well, world champ.
Really?
I mean, at that time. Well, okay, so I'm critical of Major League Baseball because they call it World Series.
No,
but it's not. They're not playing a global.
No. That's not. That's not where
bare
I'm going.
knuckle's different. Bare knuckle, and anybody at BKFC.
You have said
that weight class.
You have said on this show, and I've called you a moron for it.
Okay.
Is that if somebody vacates a belt, if somebody is stripped of a belt, and the next person who wins that title, you have said they're not the world champion, that they're not the champ.
Did I say that?
You say that all the time.
I mean, I know you're not considered a real champ until you've been beaten, because a loser will keep going when they're winning, only through the adversity of being beaten and coming back and becoming champ again, like Rose Yamanudas did. Right? That's what makes, in my mindset, that's what makes you a true champion, when you have to go over adversity and come back from that. But yeah, if there's only one title, I mean, like, I don't like the interim belt. I don't think the interim belt is real.
No, the interim belt is a joke.
It's a joke
in all organizations, and we've said that.
But I would say this is as closest to a world title as you can get, because BKFC is global. They have fights overseas. They have them in Asia. They have them in Thailand. So at that weight class, if Jared's the title holder of that weight class, it's a world title.
I'm not saying, and you've always said that about sports, whether it's the NFL, whether it's the European soccer league, but you have said, if a belt is vacated, if you do not beat the existing champion, you have said on the show, and I can get Steve to pull it.
I believe I probably said that.
No, you have definitely said that.
I didn't have anybody in mind when I said it.
Well,
it wasn't like a personal attack.
I just wanted to. No, I'm not saying it's a personal attack.
But if the actual champion of that weight class who vacated it is still available to fight, he's still active or not injured, or then I think that changes things. But in this case, Lorenzo's not available. Like, his dislocated elbow.
Even before he popped his elbow, when he still had the light heavyweight champ title, I called him out multiple times. Even when he was, we knew he was way bigger than me. He probably wasn't going to cut the weight, but he was, bitching when I was fighting for the interim title. And it's like, well, we're only fighting for the interim title because you won't defend the one you have. So he wouldn't defend it when he had it. I never had the option to fight him. I wanted to fight him. I would have if they would have given me the chance. So what else can I do besides fight the next top contender if he's out?
Well, and this isn't a Jared Warren thing.
Right.
I'm just giving my side.
No. This isn't because it's you, and because it's just, these are one of the numerous things that he always says, A, to piss me off, and B, I never know when he's saying crap just to piss me off or if he believes it. And he has always sworn that he believes that if you win a vacated belt or a suspended belt, or, if you're not beating the existing champ, you are not the champion when you win the world title. And again, I call him a moron.
Well, but at the same time, I mean, yes, you're right.
Tag that.
I mean,
he said it.
But here's the thing, like in the NBA, the best basketball players don't belong to the NBA. I mean, you can go to the streets in Rucker Park, you can go across the country, around in the world, and find 5 dudes that are better at the game of basketball than the 5 that are playing on a team that's organized, that play the system.
I believe that.
There's fighters that have never been discovered. There's bodybuilders who have lack of confidence internally to never go on stage because you're being judged on your weaknesses, not celebrated for your strengths. So the best of the world are still out there. Just because you have a title doesn't mean you're the best in the world. But
two entirely different subjects we're talking about.
And in this organization, if Jared wins that next month, then yes, you're the world title
in any organization. Because you have said it, not just in BKFC, you've said UFC, you've said, Bellator, PFL, whatever. If you go and win what is being called a title fight, and you win the title, A, you're the champion. And then he always says, oh, you have to defend it to be the world champ. No, you don't. You have the freaking belt. You are the world champ.
But on a bigger scale, we have the same thing with Mundell and Perry. Perry is not the champion. Dave Mundell is the real champion. And because Mundell doesn't have a big enough name or star power or following, he can't get that fight, which is what I believe the fans want.
No, and we had Feldman on, a couple of weeks ago, and again, that's not what we're talking about. Right. Dave Mendel is the world champ. Mike Perry's not. It has nothing to do with something you have said. For how long have you bothered me on this show?
Too long.
Yeah, exactly. So now I finally had somebody to sit down in front of you, which is the second time I've had to prove you wrong. The first one was the blind shopper when we had Kim Kardashian's best friend tell you you're a moron.
Oh, yeah, the food god. Jonathan.
I don't remember his name, but all right. So,
okay. So I'm good. I'm good with that.
Okay.
What was my stance again? Play that back.
Your stance has always been, if you don't beat the existing holder of the belt, you are not the world champion if you win the world title.
But then, see, there's
nothing
to it. No, because like he's talking about, Lorenzo was a holder in two different divisions, two different weight classes. And you can't defend that often in two different weight classes at that level. So missing opportunities, then it has to go to like the next in line.
Don't try to make up a reason for it. It doesn't matter.
Nah.
None of that matters. I just wanted to finally be able to prove that whoever wins that fight is the world champion.
Yes,
it doesn't matter who they had. All they have to do is beat the guy across from that line that's in the squared circle.
And there's no champion right now, so that is a world title fight.
Right. It's for the title.
Yes.
So
and they're doing it right too, because my situation in particular, I am number 1 contender and I'm fighting the number 2 contender. So it's like best case scenario for a vacant title. Yeah.
What can you tell us about the opponent? What do you know? Does it even care? Do you need to know much?
Well, so he's 9-1. Got a really good record, but I fought him 2 years ago. That one loss came from me. He's a tall, lanky individual. He's like 6'4", or so. He came over from a different organization. He was their champion and stuff. And and I gave him his first and only loss. Since then, he's won his 2 follow-up fights. I've won my 2 fights since then. So it makes sense. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
He's been doing well. I got a chance to go over to England and beat the guy who was a number 1 contender. So everything's fallen into place. I love the fight. Like I said, I beat him then, and since then I feel like he's actually slowed down a bit. Like, even though I do feel he won his fights fair and square, I feel like he's kind of recessed a bit. Whereas I feel like I've improved because I never stopped training and trying to improve upon any weaknesses I might have. But talk's cheap. But I'm ready to go in there and talk my fist.
Talk about the evolution of BKFC, and we still talk about it. I always say it's really people say boxing, but it's not. It's fighting, because boxing is different than just going and fighting. And I've talked about, Mike Richmond in that, he kind of boxes a little bit, not just brawls a little bit.
Right.
Talk about the difference.
It's pretty much, it's dirty boxing. That's like, if you could consolidate it into one thing. But like when I'm talking to somebody who has, still on the outside, hasn't really heard of the sport yet, I refer to it as bare knuckle boxing for simplicity, because as soon as you say bare knuckle fighting, they're like, oh, so it's like UFC just without gloves. You guys can kick and grapple. I'm like, no, we can't do any of that. If you say bare knuckle boxing, they usually put it together what it is. It's boxing, bare knuckle. You're just throwing hands.
Sure.
I don't have to tell them all the other stuff. But it is its own thing, man. You're right. It's something that's new and constantly evolving. I think not unlike when UFC was brand new. Over the next, 10, 20 years, you're going to see guys who are way better than me and guys that are new in the sport, because it will become its own style. You know what I mean? Like all the guys that, Chance right now would have no problem beating someone like Royce Gracie in his prime, just because of the evolution of it now. You know what I mean? Back then he was whooping everybody easy, it was brand new. People didn't know exactly how to deal with him. So I think it's going to continue to evolve and will be known as its own entity.
And if those new people could whoop Royce then or Royce now, they would send the better Gracies in.
Yes.
Because the legendary story is Royce wasn't the best.
Yeah.
He was the smallest. He was the youngest. And we're like, we're going to show how bad we are. We're going to send the kid in.
Which I love that. I like the way they did that.
And that's the point. I mean, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it was a puzzle piece of leverage that people didn't know how to crack the puzzle. Like, they didn't know how to crack the code.
It was using the bathrobe that you're wearing.
Yeah. I mean, so you use the, it's the original gi is what it was. But bare knuckles, same thing. There's going to be ways that people train, to condition, to strategies change. Because I think in the fighters' fanfare, we would all love all fights to go down like the Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje, toe the line, 10 seconds, somebody's going to sleep. But you got to fight a smart fight. You got to fight to your strengths. You got to fight to your advantage. You can't just go in there and brawl and hope you connect before they connect, because it's not a good strategy.
That is their strategy a lot of times, unfortunately.
But when you get pressure from Dave Feldman, like he's vocal this week about Chris Sarro, came out publicly and trashed a fighter in his organization.
Yeah.
When the guy at the top is demanding that's the style of jumping on the apron, slapping the apron, screaming from the table, I think it changes the sport, because they know that that's what the boss wants. So that's not necessarily the greatest strategy to win, for longevity, to fight for long periods of time, to continue to support your family and this dream.
Yeah. But ultimately, this sport and all sports, it's out there because it's entertainment, you know what I mean? And guys taking the overly safe route is not entertaining. Yeah, I mean,
sure.
That's why people will still come and watch Mike Tyson fight, but I don't
Tank Abbott.
Yeah, he was an entertaining guy. He wasn't a great fighter.
For 45 seconds,
he would get after it.
It was the best minute.
He knew something was coming. Yeah, he was going to try and kill you.
All right, before we hit the break with what you just mentioned, it was the same thing Roy Nelson and Dana White. When Dana was saying, this isn't entertaining on The Ultimate Fighter, and Roy's like, I'm not here to be entertaining. I'm here to win the tournament. And I'm going to do what I need to do to get to the next one. That's the difference. All right, let's go hit a break. Coming to you live from the Cool Breeze AC broadcast facility. This is Knockout Radio.